Hello and good day to everyone. So for today, we're going to talk about the barriers to effective international communication, and this is derived from the authors McKeever, Chase, and Shambo, published in the year 2013. So why do we need to talk about this? It is because we need to identify what could hinder international communication that is very vital for our countries to become more improved and, of course, progressive to the different aspects that would help the whole society. So the first one is ethnocentrism. Now, what is ethnocentrism? Ethnocentrism refers to the belief that a person's culture, his in-group culture, is much better than any other group's culture. Okay? So, the tendency is for that person to judge any out-group culture by using the norms of his in-group culture. So, they're going to say that this one is accepted and that is not accepted, when in fact, they have different cultures. All of us are, to some extent, ethnocentric, okay, whose ethnocentricity falls somewhere on a scale between low and high. But of course, it is suggested that our level of ethnocentricity, okay, would positively affect our ability to successfully communicate cross-culturally. It's like we influence others, or we share to others our cultures in a manner that we respect them as well, and that we get to know their culture and then we respect them as well. If our ethnocentricity level is high, the effect is negative. Okay? So, we are less likely to attempt to interact with those whose cultures differ from ours, because we are somewhat indulged to our culture, and it's like we don't want to accept other cultures. That's high ethnocentricity, and it's not really good. So we can possibly feel suspicious, defensive, and toward them, okay, because they have different social and cultural norms from the in-group in which we belong. So, on the other hand, with a low ethnocentricity level, the effect is positive because we become curious, interested, and inspired. So, it's like we are open-minded to what the others practice or believe. So, they are inspired with the out-group, okay, of what they do. So, we become more inclined to deal with them, enjoy their company, and experience the benefits of our increased intercultural communication, because that's how we will be able to learn, that's how we will be able to improve our knowledge in certain cultures. That's how we will become to accept them as who they are. Next is stereotypes and prejudices. So, stereotyping and being prejudiced against cultural groups are the main barriers to intercultural communication. The negative characteristics attributed to one group can cause beliefs and feelings that lead to biases and discrimination against that group. So, we discriminate, but we must not. So, the discriminated group often suffers from being rejected and avoided in cross-cultural interactions. So, we must not do this. Okay? So, of course, okay, let's talk more about stereotypes. So, what are stereotypes? Stereotypes are often generalized negative traits assigned to a group. So, when we say something negative to a certain group, okay, it's stereotyping. Okay. So, for example, we say something about something about race they are negative, the nationality, the religion, you say something bad about them, that's stereotyping. Or even if these traits may only reflect a selected few of the group, of course, that's already stereotyping. Simply said, a stereotype is a generalization of a group of people based on a small sample of these people. So you are like giving generalization on how to look at a certain group, when in fact some of them are the ones who are doing what you have witnessed. So it's like if you're going to say that this culture has this negative trait, when in fact you just saw a small sample of that culture, that's already stereotyping. Stereotyping, or classifying an entire group of people or culture with defining characteristics which are usually unfair and untrue, is much easier than explaining the complexities of the uniqueness of specific situations and the individual differences essential in each event. So, let's have an example. While walking to your home late at night and you see a group of senior citizens walking behind you, you walk normally because you consider senior citizens as weak and harmless. But when you meet a group of teenage boys with long and kempt hair wearing dirty clothes, you walk fast and try to avoid them because you conclude that they are good for nothing, snatchers, and troublemakers. So you judge them based on their physical appearance, and it's not really good. Your generalizations are the results of your own experiences, situations you see in videos, movies, and televisions, things you read about from newspapers, magazines, and books, and experiences you hear from your family, relatives, and friends. That's stereotyping. And then we have prejudice. Prejudice, an offshoot of stereotypes. Okay, this one is an unfair thought, belief, or feeling or dislike for a person or group because of race, nationality, gender, sexual orientation, age, religion, and so on. It is a negative preconceived opinion held by one group toward members of another group that biases perception and provides a reason for discrimination. When someone's prejudiced, this usually refers to his thoughts, feelings, and beliefs about a certain group of people, which he learns only from his in-group and not from any first-hand direct contact with out-group members, and he seldom attempts to check the validity of this bias. So it's like he just heard a certain negative trait, okay, from his group, and then without experiencing it firsthand, without witnessing it personally, you began to adapt or to believe that negative trait that your group has told to you. Okay, so it shouldn't be like that. We must, of course, always check the validity of this bias. Okay, so in the previously cited example of stereotypes, your prejudices are based on the characteristics resulting from your stereotyping. So, because prejudice is your thought, okay, it's resulting from your stereotyping. Okay, so stereotyping, saying something about a certain group, and then once you have said something about negatively about a certain group, it will be passed on to another. That will result to prejudice, even if then another person haven't really experienced if that is true. That is already prejudice. So you feel safe among the senior citizens whom you believe to be weak and harmless. Okay, so stereotyping, but become afraid of the teenagers whom you regard as good-for-nothing, snatchers, and troublemakers. So, okay, when you feel something, when you think of something about a certain group, okay, it's not necessary that it's negative, okay, but you somewhat categorize them with such trait, okay, even if you haven't proved to be true, okay, that's prejudice. Stereotyping is saying something negatively about a certain group. So I hope you got the difference. Okay, alright, so that's stereotype and prejudice. Next barrier is the assumed similarities, okay? So an assumption of similarity is a baseless, unreasonable refusal to see cultural differences where they exist. So from this one, you assume that all cultures are just really the same, when in fact it's not. So this happens when members of one group assume that all groups behave the same way they do, that what is true to their culture is also true to all other cultures. So this results in insensitivity to cultural differences. So of course, if you think that you are all the same, then you might not really acknowledge the difference, in which sometimes you don't know if you are already discriminating, stereotyping, or having this prejudice. So for an instance, a half Filipino who belongs to a high contact culture overlooks the fact that some other cultures, like that of Americans, are low contact culture ones. This Filipino therefore feels offended when he stands close to an American and the American instinctively moves away from him. He does not know that, unlike us Filipinos, Americans value their personal space. Okay, so what is this personal space for Americans? We have here at arm's length. Okay, so a distance of about 30 inches. They really value those. Okay, but we Filipinos do not, as you could see on our different crowds. Okay, so we must avoid this assumed similarities. Next one is anxiety. Intercultural communication anxiety is the fear or apprehension associated with either real or anticipated communication with people from another cultural group. The fear is often caused by differences in language ability, verbal and nonverbal communication styles, and expression of emotions. So both in-group and out-group cultures may experience feelings of impatience, frustration, and suspicion while communicating, or even in anticipation of the interaction, which can then increase anxiety in both parties. So of course, when you are feeling this one, so let's have an instance. When you experience high levels of anxiety, your natural instinct is to avoid the situation. Just like in communication, you don't want to be involved in a communication. So for instance, as a new college student, you usually feel afraid and nervous before your first day of classes in the university, because you do not know what to expect from your new classmates and teachers whose cultures are different from yours. So it's not that we don't give importance to this one, but as a teacher, I'm really advising that for whoever is listening to this video, okay, I pray that you would overcome this kind of feeling if ever that you are experiencing this one, and that you will be really confident, or gain the confidence, or learn how to be confident in speaking, okay, or in communicating with other groups who have, of course, different cultures. It's not just for your own improvement, but when we get to communicate with other cultures, we give mutual benefit because we learn from each other, and we could establish connection, we could widen our networks, and that will not just improve you as an individual, but of course to the whole community, because you are contributing to this improving globalization. Okay, so I think that's it for the barriers to international communication. I hope that you learned from this one. Thank you and God bless.